Greetings and welcome to another video by OSI's Online IELTS. In today's video, we are going to learn the strategies, the basic strategy for reading heading matching questions. Now, like we discussed true, false, not given questions in the previous video, if you have not watched it, make sure to check it out. It is one of the most difficult question types in the reading section of the IELTS test. So in today's video, we are going to do heading matchings. According to certain candidates, according to certain of my own students, they believe it is another one which gives them nightmares. Now let's find out what it is all about. Alright, so welcome back. My name is Anish Patel. I'm the academic head here at OSI. So like I said before, we are going to learn the strategy for reading heading matching questions. Now this strategy is fairly similar to that of locating information questions as well. You'd be able to solve both of them using this strategy that I'm about to explain to you. Don't worry about the modules. Academic module also has heading matchings, reading module also has the same, and both the modules will use the same strategy. So make sure you pay close attention, and without any delay, let's jump into the slide. Now, with any reading question, the questions are always written after the passage. However, with list of headings, the questions are always before the passage. So that kind of indicates that you're supposed to read these headings first and then move on to the passage. So as you can see, there are 10 different headings over here, all of which are important. You need to read each and every heading and understand the meaning of these phrases or sentences. If you understand the meaning properly, then while you're reading the paragraph, you'll be able to remember easily whether you read something about this paragraph in the list of headings. So let's quickly take a look at these headings. The first one says how deforestation harms isolated trees. Now this one is a how question. It basically indicates that the paragraph should contain a process in which deforestation causes some effect on isolated trees. It harms them, it damages them. So again, I would like to remind you to keep your eyes open for synonyms as well. They may not use the exact words in the passage as they have in the list of headings over here. The second one, how other plants can cause harm. So the passage, if you know, is about trees, and over here it says how other plants. So other plants can cause harm to the trees. And then the next one says which big trees support the most diverse species. So over here, which big trees indicates that there should be a name of the species or something of a particular big tree, and they support most diverse species. So species of animals, birds, insects, all those things could be in the paragraph. And then the next one says impact of big tree loss on the wider environment. So if we lose the big trees, how will it affect the environment in general? When it says wider environment, it usually refers to environment in general. The next one, measures to prevent further decline in big tree populations. So measures is the key word over here. It would refer to solutions or suggestions or alternate ways of doing something that would prevent big tree populations from declining. The next one says how wildlife benefits from big trees. So what are the type of advantages that wildlife has due to the big trees would be mentioned in the paragraph. The next one says risk from pests and infection. So if big trees are at risk from any of the pests or any of the infection that are out there, then it would be mentioned in that paragraph. Next one says ways in which industry uses big tree products. So the word industry refers to industry in general. It could be furniture, stationery, or any other item, even construction that uses big tree products. So the ways in which it refers to how the industry uses them. So that could be in the paragraph. The second last one over here is how higher temperatures slow the rate of tree growth. So again, the same thing, it might show a process through which higher temperatures are responsible for the slower growth rate of trees. And the last one says factors that enable trees to grow to significant heights. Now, this one here, it says factors clearly, so that means some things that are responsible to boost the tree's height significantly. So significant heights is also another two words that you need to keep an open eye for. There could be again synonyms in the passage. So those are the headings. Once you have read them, once you have understood them properly, you will have to also remember them while you read the passage. So what I'm trying to say is, when I'm reading a particular passage, if I'm reading a paragraph, I'm always going to keep these headings in the back of my mind. So because while reading the paragraph, what would happen is that I may come across a set of synonyms from the headings, and that time I just stop and I'll think whether something like this was on the list of headings. So just keep an open mind, focus perfectly, and you should be able to solve these in no time. So anyways, let's jump into the passage and see what the passage is all about. Alright, so there it is. It says trees in trouble. There is also a subheading over here. It says what is causing the decline of the world's giant forests. So giant forests, it refers that the whole passage is going to show how trees are becoming less and less in numbers and how the decline is happening. So it sounds as if it is going to be like a research passage. So there's the first paragraph, paragraph A. Now let's read the first line and the last line of this paragraph. This is going to be the most important strategy when it comes to reading heading matching questions, and when it also comes to locating information questions. Alright, so before we proceed, I would like to quickly explain what I mean the most important strategy. Every time someone writes a paragraph or someone writes a research report, if you write an essay or something, or even an article, there is a general way to approach things. If you write the paragraph, you always start with something that would indicate what the paragraph is going to be about. So usually the main idea of the paragraph is generally hinted in the beginning couple of sentences, and if you want to again make sure, you should also read the last couple of sentences so that you can confirm that you have understood the main idea of the paragraph. Now that's the first step to do. The second step, however, is, let's say for example, you did not understand what the main idea is. You read the first few sentences, the last few sentences, still you have no idea what it means. So what would you do then? Then you would go in the middle of the paragraph, you will look for linkers. Linkers are known as the cohesive devices. They are basically connecting phrases, or they're also known as transitional phrases. We use them in essays as well. They don't necessarily join the sentences, they just establish a link between them. So for example, when I say that I worked very hard for the exam, full stop, as a result I was able to score 9 bands. So as a result is my transitional phrase. I'm transitioning from the first sentence to the second sentence. So the reason why these phrases are important is because always, if you want to mention something important, you are going to use a linker, or you are going to use a transitional phrase, just like we do in the essays. Whenever you want to give a new point, you usually say to begin with, or in addition to that, or moreover, furthermore. So look for these phrases in the paragraph because after these phrases, they are usually followed with important points that should give you a main idea of the entire paragraph. So that is step number 2. Now, let's say you still did not understand the paragraph. What would you do then? Then it would be better to leave that paragraph and move on to the next one, because if you waste too much time on just one, you may lose out on the other ones that are easier compared to that. You can come back later and solve it in the end if you have some time, but other than that, my recommendation is to leave if it's taking more than 2 minutes to solve. So alright, let's move on to the slides and solve our heading matching questions. So the first paragraph, you can see we are going to read the first few sentences. It says big trees are incredibly important ecologically. For a start, they sustain countless other species. Now, this reminds me of one of the headings that I saw in the list, but still I'm not going to be impatient. What I'm going to do is I'm also going to read the last couple lines over here as well. I've highlighted both of them so you can see. It says this allows them to produce massive crops of fruit, flowers, foliage that sustain much of the animal life in the forest. Now it says this allows them to produce. So basically the word them refers to trees again. So trees are producing fruits, flowers, foliage that sustain, that support the animal life in the forest. It says much of the animal life, so different types of species we can assume. So let's go back to the headings. The headings over here, we have to find out which one matches the best. So if you remember, there is the number 6 over here, how wildlife benefits from big trees. So basically we saw in the passage that trees sustain different species of animals, and this would be the title that goes with it the best. Now in the exam, if you want to make sure even further that this is the right answer, what you do is you select this as your option, as your final answer, and then you read the other headings again and you see why you have eliminated all the headings. So the first one, it says how deforestation harms isolated trees. Obviously we did not see anything about deforestation in the paragraph, so that can't be it. How other plants can cause harm, again that can't be it, because they did not mention anything about other plants. They mentioned about animals. The third one says which big trees support most diverse species. Now over here it says which big trees. They were not talking about different species of trees, they just mentioned that big trees sustain animals and other wildlife. So we can eliminate that as well. So yes, this way you should be able to eliminate all of them excluding the one that is your answer. If you are able to eliminate everything confidently, then you know that the answer that you've chosen is most likely to be correct. So yes, just focus on the first few sentences. The last few sentences, read them very, very carefully and then choose your answer. Let's do another one. So the second paragraph here, it says only a small number of tree species have the genetic capacity to grow really big. The last sentence here says disrupt any of these and you can lose your biggest trees. So as you can see in the first sentence itself, it identifies what the paragraph is going to be about. It talks about certain tree species who are able to grow really big. So we can probably expect that it might talk about certain factors that help trees to grow big. And then in the end it says disrupt any of these. We don't know what these refers to. So what we are going to do is we are going to read the previous sentence just to get a whole background information, So it says to achieve giant stature, a tree needs 3 things. Now, if I were you, I would just stop reading right here, because it clearly mentions to achieve giant stature. That means to grow really big, a tree needs 3 things. So this reminds me of one of the titles that I saw. It says, the last one over here in the titles, it says factors that enable trees to grow to significant heights. So yes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to confidently select option 10 as the answer for my paragraph B. You see how easy that was. This is exactly how it happens in the real test as well. It is possible that sometimes the paragraphs are quite tricky. It is very difficult to find out what the main idea is, but no need to worry, no need to read everything again and again in detail. Just try and focus and find out what is the author trying to say by this paragraph. If you're still not able to find, then come back to the headings and see which one can match even closely to that passage, and that should be your answer. Alright, let's do another one. Paragraph C, it says, in some parts of the world, populations of big trees are dwindling because their seedlings cannot survive or grow. The last sentence, the grass grows up to 4 meters tall and burns fiercely, creating super hot fires that cause catastrophic tree mortality. So Grass is a different type of plant, and the grass grows 4 meter tall. It burns fiercely, which creates fires, and then it causes trees to die. So it says mortality, that means death. So this again should remind you of a heading. There was a heading that said something about other plants, which is, I think, the second one over here, how other plants can cause harm. So again, I'm going to confidently write this one in my answer sheet. So this is not the step where you just stop. I am just doing this for the sake of saving time in this video, but in the real practice or in the real test, what you do is when you write the answer, you also go back to the headings and see why you are eliminating the other ones. That way you can become more confident, you can become more sure that your answer is in fact correct. Alright, so let's do one more. Paragraph D, it is a bit bigger compared to the previous paragraphs. Let's see what it's about. It says, without the right growing conditions, trees cannot get really big, and there is some evidence to suggest that tree growth could slow in a warmer world, particularly in environments that are already warm. Alright, so this sentence should suggest you that there was something like this in the headings. It says here twice, a warmer world and environments that are already warm. Places that are warm usually have higher temperatures, and due to higher temperatures, trees cannot get really big. This is what the sentence says over here. Let's read the last one. Let's not be impatient over here. The last sentence says, with less energy produced in warmer years and more being consumed just to survive, there is even less energy available for growth. So now our title is locked and loaded. Our title here, it says in the 9th one, how higher temperatures slow the rate of tree growth. That clearly indicates that it matches with the paragraph perfectly. So I'm not even going to waste any further time. I'll just put this as my answer and move on to the next one. Paragraph E, quite small. Now in the real test, if you come across such small paragraphs, it is always a good idea just to read the entire thing. That way it will save some time on you figuring out the main idea or anything like that. So the Clark's hypothesis, if correct, means tropical forests would shrink over time. The largest, oldest trees would progressively die off and tend not to be replaced. According to the Clark's, this might trigger a destabilization of the climate. Climate is synonym of environment. Destabilization, so it talks about something that would hurt the environment. As older trees die, forests would release some of their stored carbon into the atmosphere, prompting a vicious cycle of further warming, forest shrinkage, and carbon emissions. All these three factors are responsible for the decline of the environmental quality. This should ring some bells in the heading section over here. If you can see, there is number 4. It says impact of big tree loss on the wider environment. That is the title that matches the best with paragraph E. Now, before we proceed to the next one, I would like to tell you one more thing. In the heading matching questions, the headings are never repeated. You would not see that one heading matches with 2 of them. I mean, it may come close to that. You may be confused that this heading matches with both the paragraphs, but it's never true. If it were true, then they will give an instruction to us that says that you can use one heading more than once. So unless they have given such instructions, what you can and should do in this question is that whatever headings you choose as your answer, just cross them out of the box with your pencil. So that way, when you're doing the next paragraph, you don't get confused as to which heading matches perfectly. You can just ignore the ones that have already been taken and then just choose from the few remaining ones that still are unclaimed. So alright, let's do the next paragraph over here. Paragraph F. Now this one here is the biggest one I've seen. So let's start reading. The first sentence says, big trees face threats from elsewhere. The most serious is increasing mortality, especially of mature trees. So they're talking about threats to big trees. threats from elsewhere. So that could be something else apart from the things that we've already read, that was environment and other plants. The last sentence over here is again kind of long. It starts with a linker. As you can see, the sentence is highlighted. It starts with second. So if there is a linker that says second, there has to be a linker that says first as well. But anyways, we'll first read this one over here. Second, rainforest fragments dry out when surrounded by dry, hot pastures, and the resulting drought can have devastating consequences. One 4-year study has shown that death rates will double for smaller trees but will increase 4.5 times for bigger trees. So over here, if you read this, you will understand immediately that rainforest fragments, so parts of rainforest, they dry out and surrounded by dry and hot pastures, resulting in drought that can have devastating consequences. So what could this mean? If we go back to the headings, we won't find anything that matches perfectly over here. So like I said, we are indeed a bit stuck with this one. So let's go on with the second step that says to read the linkers. So we have already read the last sentence that began with the linker second, and I found another one that says first. So before that it says this happens for 2 reasons. Now we don't know what this is. So let's read the previous sentence as well, just to get a background idea. So the previous sentence, it says, in the Amazon, my colleagues and I found the mortality rate for the biggest trees had tripled in small patches of rainforest surrounded by pasture land. Now, before we proceed, you need to know what pasture land is. Pasture land is a flat land. It has just grass in it. It is used for pastures, for grazing the herds of cattle and so forth. So in the pasture land, there won't be anything to stop the winds. That is something we can assume. In the pasture land, there won't be a lot of trees as well. So whatever trees are there in the forest, if they are surrounded by a pasture, then what do those trees become? They are isolated, they are alone, they don't have any tree friends with them in that area. Now that does remind me of a heading, but before we jump to conclusion, let's figure out what this point means. First, as they grow taller, big trees become thicker and less flexible. When wind blows across the surrounding cleared land, there is nothing to stop their acceleration when they hit the trees, which means when the wind hit the trees, the impact can snap them in half. So now we know that our title of isolated something has to be correct. Let's look at the title. So it says over here in the title that how deforestation harms isolated trees. It's the first one over here. So in the passage it said cleared land. That means deforestation has just happened. So cleared land allows the wind to flow without any stoppage that could snap the trees in harm. That could snap the trees in half, not harm, half. But which are those trees? They are the trees that are isolated and surrounded by dry, hot pasture lands. So yes, this is going to be my heading for this one. Now, let's stop here for a second. This paragraph was particularly long. It did take us a while to solve, but if you notice that if you do it yourself without having to explain it to someone else like I just did, it will take a very short time, about 45 seconds to 1 minute and 20-25 seconds, which is as much longer as it should be for any question type in the reading in the reading test. So let's do the last one and then we can call it a day. The last paragraph here is not too long. It just says this: particular enemies to large trees are insects and disease. Now, this is fairly easy. Insects is a synonym of pests. Disease could be a synonym for infections. So we already have a title like that somewhere. It says in the 7th one over here, it says risk from pests and infection. So without any further thought or any other more wasting time, what I would do is I would just select this title and be done with it. So these are our answers. So hopefully you understood the meaning of how important it is to gather the main idea from each and every paragraph. This will help you not only with heading matching questions, but it will also help you with locating information questions as well. So whenever you are reading, always do this practice. Read the paragraph, the first few sentences and the last few sentences, and try to think what the author is trying to convey from that. That way it will help you identify the key point, the key idea of that particular passage. So anyways, I hope you liked watching this video. If you enjoyed it, give us a like, throw in some feedback in the comment section below, and subscribe to our channel. Hit the bell icon so that you don't miss any further updates on new videos. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day.